Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Channel Nebraska. My name's Eric McKay. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. Beginning in the Midwest, where residents have been rescued from floodwaters that have forced multiple evacuations. In northwest Iowa, 13 rivers flooded the area, according to Clay County Emergency Manager Eric Teagues. Entire neighborhoods, at least one entire town, were evacuated. The Iowa town of Spencer imposed a curfew Sunday for the second night in a row after flooding there surpassed a record set in 1953. Governor Kim Reynolds, meanwhile, declared a disaster for 21 counties in northern Iowa. You can see drone video here posted by a local sheriff that shows that no streets were visible, just roofs and treetops poking above the water.
Beginning on Friday, some areas up in northwest Iowa, so the ground is saturated, which we didn't think we would ever begin to say after 4 years of drought. But beginning on Friday, some areas got up to 15 inches of rain over 2 days. And of course, because the ground was saturated, that has resulted in severe flooding across several counties.
Meanwhile, in South Dakota, Governor Kristi Noem declared an emergency after severe flooding in the southeast part of the state. Several highways shut down. Areas south of Sioux Falls got 10 to 15 inches of rain over 3 days. Noem said Sunday at least one person had died in the floods. Those high waters expected to move downstream this week, with flood advisories in Nebraska in effect from Decatur to Rulo. Speaking of Nebraska, Governor Jim Pillen has authorized the deployment of a military helicopter and crew to assist in search and rescue operations around Sioux City. 4 members of the Nebraska National Guard departed Sunday and will be operational through today. The Nebraska team will support the Iowa National Guard in these efforts, responding to a request under the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. And this past weekend's heavy rainfall saw parts of Nebraska, including in Howard County, experience major flooding. A resident of Dannebrog shared these images showing at least 3 inches of standing water in town. Residents said basements of homes and businesses also had 3 to 4 inches of water in them. Around 90 volunteers and community members joined the local fire department to put up about 4,000 sandbags. In the meantime, Archer Credit Union has set up 2 different accounts for the village and the fire department to help with recovery. After major flooding and rainfall, worries over flooding along the Missouri River are increasing. The National Weather Service has put flood warnings into effect into next week. From Decatur to Rulo, moderate flooding forecast through July 1st. In Nebraska City, the Missouri River expected to reach 23 feet. That's considered moderate flooding. Near Blair, it's the same story. Flooding anticipated to peak at around 29 feet. This has caused officials with Omaha's riverfront to close parts of Lewis and Clark Landing until further notice. It's not just the Missouri. The Elkhorn River was above flood level in Atkinson Monday, as was the Clear Creek in Shelby. Rivers and creeks swelled past their banks over the weekend, shutting down roads in northeast Nebraska. In Knox County, the Ponca Creek has been at the moderate flood stage since Friday evening. Standing water had washed out dirt roads and closed some county roads, although it stopped just short of overtopping Highway 12. The National Weather Service says the Ponca Creek has crested. It was back under flood stage Monday morning. In other news, today marks 2 years since the Supreme Court Dobbs decision effectively overturning Roe v. Wade. The anniversary comes as the High Court considers another potentially monumental abortion case. It could rule any day now on whether a federal law mandating emergency care can override a state ban. Amy Kiley has this look at the abortion battle on the Dobbs anniversary.
Emergencies in pregnancy can happen in a moment.
Today marks 2 years since the Supreme Court overturned the federal right to abortion access.
If I have an emergency, my first call would be my lawyer and my second call would be my doctor.
The Biden campaign says it's holding more than 50 events to rally supporters around the anniversary. The Women's March is calling for strikes in multiple states.
The Dobbs decision ushered in a new era of American politics. It changed for women, but it also changed for democracy.
Others celebrate the High Court ruling.
Roe v. Wade and that decision of it being overturned has given the decision back to the people at the state level, and every state will look different. I think that's appropriate.
This patchwork of state abortion protections and restrictions is the result of the Dobbs ruling.
This is a state that's clear about protecting women and creating equality.
We have women that are suffering, that are driving hundreds of miles for an abortion.
Now, some patients and doctors say the state laws can create confusion, fear, and heartache.
What is often the most devastating time in your life, a complicated pregnancy, and then so much unnecessary suffering added to that because of the strict abortion bans. I'm
Amy Kiley reporting.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, they're also stepping into the fight over transgender rights. The High Court has agreed to hear appeals from the Biden administration and families seeking to block state bans on gender-affirming care. The justice's action Monday comes as Republican-led states, including Nebraska, have restricted health care for transgender people, school sports participation, bathroom usage, and drag shows. The case before the High Court involves a law in effect in Tennessee restricting puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors. Actor Elliot Page was among 57 transgender people who joined a legal filing in support of Supreme Court review. Well, every year, hundreds of law enforcement officers either die or suffer severe injuries while on duty. Earlier this year, Ross Bartlett, police officer from Coresco, died during a traffic stop. One Valentine officer knows firsthand how life-changing everyday parts of the job can be. Casey Wannenberg sits down with Officer Jasmine Hafes, who's recovering after nearly losing her life while trying to help others.
One or two people.
At 5 feet tall and 100 pounds,
Drugs this way.
Valentine police officer Jasmine Hafes may be small in stature,
Just a guy.
but she's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
I said she was the toughest gal I've ever met, and she said, "No, Dana, I'm not tough. I'm stubborn."
There's two dudes out there.
This self-proclaimed stubborn woman has been a police officer for 13 years. She juggles a busy job
In your backpack?
while raising 2 young children.
Because she loves us a bunch and she's really kind.
Her daughter Bryn was 6 years old and her son Jeremiah 4
All this
when a seemingly normal medical call turned potentially deadly. During the middle of a blizzard in December of 2022, a front-end loader backed over her.
It's a very humbling moment because you're sitting there thinking, there's no way. Like, this is it, you know? And all I could think of was wanting to say goodbye to my kids and, you know, what they were going to go through. So that was all that was running through my head is my babies.
Hafes suffered severe injuries to her face and arm.
It broke bones from my shoulder clear down to my hand, into my hand. But from about my elbow down, the skin was traumatized as well.
Dad told us what happened and I started to cry.
It was that sinking feeling, you know, and I ended up having to get a snowcat to come get me dug out in order to get to town.
Because of the blizzard, Hafes couldn't be life-flighted out. The more than a foot of snow had also closed all of the nearby roads.
When that didn't work, he lined up snow plows from here to Norfolk, where I ended up going to get the ambulance there safely.
Once making it to Norfolk, Hafes underwent 20 different surgeries, most of them on her arm. She spent around a month in the hospital, including Christmas.
She's really strong and brave.
That she is. Despite her injuries, Hafes worked hard to not only recover, but return to the force.
Knowing what they were going through to keep this town safe with 3 of them, that was a push to get back so that they could have some normalcy in their life too.
After almost a year away from the job, Hafes has returned to what she calls her second family.
And it's just good to have the family back together.
Helping me come back and being patient with that is, and being supportive of that. There's no other place to work. There's no better place.
And his success as an actor has been notable. The television show Stranger Things, and films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Rudy, and the Goonies. And Nebraskans got to meet him over the weekend at Homestead National Historical Park. Doug Kennedy has more.
Actor Sean Astin counts as important to good education, advocating for those fighting mental illness, and just being kind. The UCLA graduate and soon-to-be holder of a master's degree spoke to one of the largest audiences ever on Saturday outside the Homestead's Education Center.
History of American literature and culture, and then I'm just finishing my master's. I just this week finished all my coursework, and we have one more big report that we have to do, but public administration and public policy. So the Homestead Act would be something that we would have studied in our administrative law review, and yeah, so I know anything. I know everything. What do you need to know? I can tell you. If you believe that, I got some Homestead farm to sell you.
Astin, the son of the late actress Patty Duke and actor John Astin, was presented with a bit of homesteading history on his father's side of the family near Larned, Kansas. Astin said homesteading is the great American adventure, which he sees in acting.
Voting with your feet, with your family, and you're going to go try something. I mean, almost everything I've done echoes that in some way. Goonies is about finding treasure to save your home. You know, and the treasure in this context would be what? You know, the ability to farm, the ability to hunt and plant and whatever. So that, yeah, that's the same. I mean, Lord of the Rings is all about saving Middle Earth, saving, a place that's worth living in. And one of the cool things about Lord of the Rings is you realize that like a place worth living in means you're worth working to protect it. You can't it's not just going to be there. If you want someplace good, you got to make it good.
In the movie Rudy, Astin played a football player based on a real-life story of dreams to play for Notre Dame. Astin said Rudy Rudiger was risking reputation, but not necessarily losing everything.
What he's risking was the embarrassment of trying and failing at something people said he couldn't do. So I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of a homesteader, of a female who couldn't have bought land anywhere else, but by taking advantage of the Homestead Act, and they were risking everything.
Last year, Astin was involved in trying to settle an actors' union strike while working on his master's, all the while continuing with his acting career and other interests.
What's the next chapter? Our youngest kid's starting her second year in college, and so we get to look around now and think, what are we going to do? So I think when you're a performer, I don't think you ever retire. You always, but I also feel like part of my longevity in the industry is that I'm always interested in other things too. I was interested in marathons and triathlons. I was interested in education always, and a radio show and a nonprofit, and the only problem with this dumb system that got set up down here is that by the time our brains know what to do, our bodies are going too slow to do it. So I still got some juice in my body. I'm going to try and squeeze as much out of it as I can.
The 53-year-old said as he travels the U.S., people pick their moments to be polarized, but he said there's a lot more that binds us together than separates us if we just keep trying. From Beatrice, Doug Kennedy, News Channel, Nebraska.
And you can stay up to date with the very latest by following us online. Head to newschannelnebraska.com and click on the News tab there. You can also follow us on X, like us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. You're watching News Channel Nebraska.